The Consulting Success podcast is powered by the Clarity Coaching Program. If you'd like to work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personal coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, visit consultingsuccess.com to find out more and apply.
Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business.
Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky here, and welcome back to another episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. Today, I'm really excited to have Shannon and Susko join us. Shannon, welcome.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be here.
So you are a CEO and founder of Metronome United, which we'll talk a lot more about. You're also an author, a speaker. You spent the last 25 years leading, selling, advising different high growth companies. And so I'm really excited to have you share some of your experiences and your journey of not only building and then selling your own businesses, but also how you've helped many other leaders and teams to build their own businesses. And you've also developed a methodology, a system, an approach that you've been able to achieve more consistent results with. And that's a big thing. So I want to dig into that so that people can learn maybe some approaches or mindsets or principles from your system. But in addition to that, just the value of and what you've experienced of having a system and how that's helped you to build your business to where it is today. So before we get into all that stuff, let's go back in time. You and I were just kind of chatting before we hit record about your journey and where you're based, which is Whistler, right? One of the most beautiful places in the world, especially right now. I guess summertime, it's also just amazing. Let's go back. Like before you got into building businesses, you have like 3 degrees or something. So kind of take me back to like your early education. How did you get to where you are today? If we kind of just like look at a few chapters of your life.
Yeah. So if we take that chapter, is went and did business degree, majored accounting and management information systems. It sounds weird at this point because that's just computer science, software engineering and all that, but definitely got a dual degree there. Went out and worked for a year, learned what I liked, what I didn't like. I knew I liked the mountains, but I did actually real jobs in the mountains after that. And then I went back. I went back to school. I found Whistler, but then I got injured, right? That happens. As ski instructor, ski coach, you get injured. You go back and you're like, what am I going to do now? You go back to school. I went back and did a computer science degree. So I have a computer science degree as well. Why did I do that? And funny thing is I did a Bachelor of Science, computer science and business admin, right? Because the computer science degree was better recognized than an MIS degree. So great, left there, went out. And funny enough, I was a consultant. I had my own consulting company. I took on very high risk coding contracts for very large organizations. I only did it in the spring and summer, and a little bit of the fall. And then I'd ski my winters. And that's why I live in Whistler. And they were high risk, well paying, but I learned a ton of what I'd like to do, what I didn't like to do. And then what part of my thinking was to get bigger, better contracts. Oh, well, I should get my master's in computer science. So I went and did my master's in computer science. And when I got out at that point, I mean, this is a while ago. So it's 1995 when I got out with my master's in computer science. But there weren't many people who had masters in computer science. And then you got basically flown all over, people offering you jobs left, right, and center. But I still loved Whistler. And I had been going back and forth as we were talking across the country, back and forth every semester here and there. And I ended up back in Whistler with a group of 3 others. And we founded my first company, which ended up being Global Internet Payment Processing Service. So we built that for 10 years. And you think back to that point, if people are listening, you're like, yeah, whatever. That happens every day. But that was a thing. You didn't like go to a brick and mortar store and process a credit card transaction over the internet. That wasn't a thing. Anyway, that was our vision. We built it. So that's the second chapter of our life. So you go from school to now what? So now we're entrepreneurs and we're making all the mistakes possible in the first 4 years of our business, trying to find a way that we would have a repeatable playbook. We could grow and scale the company, have the life balance of Whistler, and basically deliver on our promise to our venture back to the VCs. And so that's easier said than done. We all know that. And we just raised a lot of money. And when the wool sort of everything got pulled out, we had still a lot of money. And so our goal was, how do we as a leadership team, we had this global leadership team come to Whistler, if you can imagine, all over the world, top of the top. I'm in my 20s as a CEO, and we're going to figure this out. Not only the business, but the system. And so my first business, we committed as a leadership team, let's find the system. Let's find a way to pull everything together and stop playing like whack-a-mole. Like one thing got going good, and we're like, yeah, and then we got this thing over here, and then we got this thing over here, and we were working harder, not smarter. And so we had to find a way. We are crazy business book junkies. We read a lot of books, and we started piecing things together. So that business went from 1995. We sold it January 6, 2006. So the anniversary wasn't that long ago. It's been quite some time, but sold to a US company out of California. We became part of a company of about 500 people. And funny enough, I went with the deal. You go with the deal. It was a good deal and fun. They were surfers. We were skiers, right? So good mentality. The most interesting thing, they didn't only want our technology, our platform, and everything we'd done. They also wanted our business system, the repeatable playbook we created, and really enabled me and my team to have a balanced life. So in that time when building a first company, if you think of it about a system, and I said in the beginning, we were working harder, not smarter. There's only so much time you can invest and so many dollars you can invest. And then most people give up. And so the system unlocked it for us, which was amazing. And the other side of that is people are thinking, oh yeah, I heard that a million times. Well, most times you don't hear is that the CEO had 3 kids in less than 3 years and had time for that, right? Had time for that. So that system enabled me to have a life, get married, have kids, have a family, have 32 ski seasons here and enjoy where we live, but also go after our passion of building a global organization, which we did with our team. So we get bought, great. We go there. I'm on a 2-year contract, sort of locked in. They ask, can you back the system into the company? I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. I didn't say yes right away in the beginning. I wanted to feel it out. And then I said, yes, let's do it. So we backed it in, and 3 years to back it totally in. Because there's phases you go through. There's an execution cache and strategy mapping phase. Then there's like validating your strategy and building the cohesiveness to the next level. And then the last stage, which is really about cascading it out throughout the organization, getting it to 500 people all the way out and through the company. So that takes time, but every quarter you take, you gain momentum, right? You gain momentum all the way through. And this leadership team was keen and committed, which you need. You need to have the willingness and desire to evolve your behavior. And they were on their own path to sell that company. But then 2008 hits, right? And for anyone listening, and maybe you're too young for that, maybe you lived through it with me, but that was like a big year. It's the worst markets we saw in our lifetime in 100 years. And all the value of the market fell out. So they sort of put their acquisition plans on hold in 2008. They had high hopes in 2008. And that was, they'd asked me to stay on for 1 more year to help them sell the company. That was happening in the front half of the year. And no one knew really how bad it was going to be in the back half. But I got offered a new idea, some orphan technology, and the opportunity to start a new company. And I had a different co-founding partner, and we built a global automated post-trade compliance system for broker dealers. Now that's a mouthful, and who cares about that? The big thing is we got to take the system and start at the beginning again, and with a new team, and take that repeatable playbook, the open playing field, the transparent scoreboard, and our coach, and do it again. And so this time we built and sold it. So the first one was 10 years. So that's nice. We really screwed up the first half of that, right? Really, we got it down in 6 years. The second one, we took this whole system that we know as metronomics, and we applied it before the doors opened. We did not venture back it. We customer funded it, and we built and sold it in 12 quarters, right? 12 quarters. We took term sheets. We exponentially knocked it out of the park on value, 60 times top line rev. We used the whole system. And I went to the other side of the deal. We're a young company, went to the other side of the deal. $3+ billion company bought us, but they also bought what we had plus the system. And again, we backed it in to the division that we joined, which was a new division, had about 1,000 people. And we backed the system in. And then I did my time. I say that lightly, but I did my time. It was 2 years and a bit. And then I said my goodbyes and I retired. So I'll stop there.
It sounds like you probably had an earnout in both cases.
Okay. So the first time, yeah, that's so funny. We did have an earnout in the first case. The second case, and this is the greatest thing about the system, as they got to know what we did, and because they actually believed our predictability, because we predicted what we were going to do, that's the 3HAG. 3-year highly achievable goal. We sold on our 3HAG. We predicted our 3HAG and delivered on our 3HAG. When we got into the negotiations around the earnout, which was another 3HAG, it got, as it does, earnouts are messy and they can actually squash a deal. And it got to the point where the acquirer said, what are we doing? We want their technology. We want exactly what they did. We want their market, how they came across, and we want this system. So they actually removed the earnout.
Wow.
They removed the earnout and paid the net present value of that earnout on the day we closed, all in. The only thing I had to put something on the line, of course, because I'm the CEO, I'm one of the major shareholders, is they made this thing called the Susco escrow. So they took a bit of my earnings, and I did that for the rest of the shareholders. They took a bit of my earnings, significant enough to make me stay, and time released it over the contract they wanted me to stay.
Gotcha. There's a lot to dig into here. And the first question may be one that people are not expecting, but I think it deserves a bit of attention, which is going back to even before you started that first company, or maybe around that time, it seems like you were very intentional in creating work-life balance, or whatever you want to call it. Many people in business, before we hit record, you told me that your father was an entrepreneur. And most entrepreneurs, I think, have this feeling inside that if you're not working on building the business, like something's wrong. And I'm wondering what was going on in your mind that gave you the confidence, or maybe you had something else you were thinking about, but allow you to say, yeah, I'm going to work on this, but I'm also going to ski in the winter. Of course, I could keep just taking on more contracts, making more money, but no, I'm actually going to carve out the winter so I could focus on skiing. Take me to that time, into that mindset. What was going on there?
Yeah, no, that's amazing that you pick up on that. Because my dad was an entrepreneur his whole life, right? Many businesses, different businesses, very successful. I'm the youngest of 5 kids in 6 years. And my dad worked really hard. The one thing my dad always said to me, and it's actually in the opening of 3HAG Way, and that book is dedicated to him. He always told me, he could see like high achiever, right? High achiever, school, sports, like go, go, go. He'd always say to me, don't forget to stop and smell the roses. And that was ingrained in me like teenager. Find your time and your balance time, and make sure that if you plan it, then you don't feel guilty about taking it, right? If you figure out a way to balance, then you don't feel guilty about taking it. And funny enough, the cover of Metronomics is Whistler Mountain, right? And there's skiers in that photo. And the reason that is the photo of the backdrop of Metronomics, my third book that was just released, is because Metronomics, the repeatable system, the open playing field, and the coach is what enabled me to find balance and balance in my life. So it's a bit of cliche, right? It's grow up yourself, your team, your company, and your life. You have to grow all of those. Otherwise, you're out of balance. And when you're out of balance, whether you're the only person in your business or you have a team of 100 in your business, if you are out of balance, it just makes it no fun, right? And so my dad enabled that thinking so early on. It's just amazing that you pick up on that.
And did you ever have feelings of guilt? Like, oh, I'm on the ski slopes right now, but I could be banging out another $50,000 contract. Shouldn't I be doing some marketing? Or
no, I mean, the biggest thing is I'll probably, this sounds crazy, but maybe for other moms that are out there, but the biggest guilt I had was really taking time to ski and not staying home with my family, because that's just ingrained in our society. And so by planning it all out, because you're balancing life, and life is skiing, and I have 3 kids under 3. I mean, you don't do that without an incredible husband who stayed home full time to support all of this, right? You got to make time for yourself. And so my trick was, and I'm a crazy planner. I like to plan my calendars. I like to plan my schedule years in advance. You have to plan out your time. Otherwise, as an entrepreneur, you won't take it. You won't take it. You'll just keep working. I felt like my dad was a little bit like that. Like he had certain trips planned. If my siblings were listening, they'd laugh because he always had his fishing trips planned. Like those were planned. And he'd have certain things, but like everything else was a bit fluid. You could definitely feel he felt that way. It's a huge load to be an entrepreneur and have to provide, sole provider for a family. We all know that. That's huge. And I never thought that would be me, by the way, but turned out it was.
Right. I mean, I think it's a great example of your time tends to fit to the schedule that you create. And I remember back in the day when I was in high school, I never studied until like my later years, then getting into university. I used to play a lot of sports when I was younger. And so I would never study, but if I had only a little bit of time available because I was so busy in sports, then I would have to get the homework done at that time. Right. So that was kind of the power of the schedule to me. I think it'd be great if you could kind of give us a high level overview of your system of kind of Metronomics or Hagway. But before we do that, if you could talk a little about like, how can you identify or how can people think about identifying, first of all, what system to develop, or maybe even more importantly, within the system, how do you know what you should actually focus on to ensure that you're looking at the right things and you're able to then make progress in the areas that matter so that you can create the time to go off and do the things that you're going to enjoy?
That's a perfect question for Metronomics because Metronomics is a system, a regimen. And that's a weird word to use for business because most of the time you hear of a health regimen, but it's like a health for business, team, and life regimen, right? So it's just me saying that sounds like people are probably listening and go, wow, that's so cliche. But it's not, because those are the things we need to keep in balance. And the system, the way it's laid out is, and to kick off the system, what we did in Metronomics, I think it last winter around this time, it was just, we were basically writing down every last thing you had to think about and the connections of it so that entrepreneurs can figure out where they are and where the system will meet them right off the bat. And so we always, everybody, no matter if someone's like been in business 70 years or 2 years, whether you're 2 people or 1,000 people, everybody does a kickoff. And why you do a kickoff is because in Metronomics, there's 7 systems. Now, a lot of people think that's overwhelming, but those systems exist in your business, whether you want to acknowledge them or not. And most people only acknowledge really 3 systems. Most companies, and I'll start with the ones most companies will recognize, which is strategy, right? There's a strategy system. And some might say, well, my strategy is not a system. But you have a strategy. I don't know a business out there that doesn't have a strategy. The second one is execution. And some have a system and some they're working out their system. And it might not be as smooth as they hope. The third one is cash. And some people are going to go, well, we have no cash system for that. And others will go, well, we do this lagging, reporting, accounting process. But cash is a system. And those 3 systems are what we know as the hard edge systems. Everyone relates to those systems. Everybody loves working on those systems. Teams want to spend most time on those systems. The other 4 systems, and actually before I talk about the other 4 systems, those 3 systems really represent your business systems: strategy, execution, and cash. Those are business systems. We learn about them in school, all those things. The other 4 systems represent team. And that sounds weird. Of course, we have a team and we have a business. But there's 3 systems in team, and one that grows up our leaders into coaches. There's the cultural system. So the behavior you accept, but there's a way to actually do this in a very effective way and time-saving way. There's a cohesive system, not stop and let's go off-site for 2 days. Let's keep the system alive. Let's grow a team that's committed to the business goals, right? And connected to the business goals, that highly trust one another. And then there's the human system, which is a terrible name, but it's a name we made up over 20 years ago. And the human system is the way we get clarity of what's expected of us in the role that we own every day. Right? Sounds pretty simple, but think of it as if I'm on a soccer team and I'm the goalie, I own that role. I own ensuring goals don't go in the net with the rest of my team, but I got that, right? I'm going to live and die by that. So those are positions and roles. And then the 4th one is like the umbrella. That's the coach cascade. And that was a system that gets introduced later into this framework. And that's where we grow up. We grow up as coaches. Leaders grow into a coach. Not all leaders want to, but leaders can grow into a coach. And then we have to grow coaches throughout the organization. And that's called the coach cascade system. And so these systems exist. And if you think of it as a house, the foundation of the house is our culture. The two walls are the cohesive system and the human system. And the top of the house are the leaders, and the rest of the team make up the peak of the house. And then inside the house is strategy, execution, and cash. They all work together, right? And they touch the outside of the house. And if our team isn't strong, right, that's the strong part of the house. If our team isn't up, people will fall out, makes it harder to grow a business and drive your systems. And the coach cascade, of course, if we can't scale our leaders, it's hard to grow a business.
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early-stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early-stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Let me ask you just to jump in. I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm really thinking about everyone who's with us right now who might be saying, this does sound like a lot, Shannon. And what if I'm a solo consultant or there's just 3 of us or 5 of us? If someone was to start thinking through their business and what they're doing in a more systematic way, where would you suggest that they start? Like if they were to take away one thing from today to start thinking about, what would you suggest that they look at?
I have 2 recommendations. One is, and this sounds self-serving, but I'll explain it in a moment. Just pick up a copy of Metronomics. Read chapter 6, read the intro, read chapter 1. If you like that, if you like what you heard, because this applies to a team of 2, team of 15, right? Team of 100, so on. If you like what you heard, which is going to tell you, here's the outcome. Chapter 6 is called Trust the System. Chapter 1 gives you the intro. Well, the intro in chapter 1 gives you the basis of why it works, right? It's very human. So whether you're 2 people or more, it works. Even if you're 1 person, I want to tell you, I've done it. I started out as a sole coach. It just kept me on track, right? All the things still matter.
What within the system, like for that solo consultant or that very small team, if they were to look at chapter 6, chapter 1, like they start diving in, and if someone, let's say, didn't have time to do that right now, like just so they can start thinking, what should they be thinking about within the system? Because you said there's 7 different parts.
So there's 7 different parts of the system, but they're offered as one. So that was my second thing. My second thing is read chapter 2. Chapter 2 and every chapter 2, 3, 4, 5 are prescriptive. It's mapped out for every 90 days for the next 3 years. It gives you what you should do no matter what size. Chapter 2 is called the kickoff. It's a 2-day kickoff. And if you're like, even have a little thought that this might be exciting, is what I would say is, if you're the CEO, if you're the solopreneur, if you are one of 2 partners that are listening in, just go and look at the steps in that. Some of the questions you've answered, like, what's the core purpose? Like, why do we do this? Some of those are in there. But some of the key parts to that, within that kickoff, you're going to actually gut out your 10 to 30 year goal. Most people don't do that for a human reason. It's scary. It's big. It's laughable. But those are all reasons why you should, right? You're also going to gut out your first 3-year highly achievable goal. This is where strategy and execution meet. And it's a line in the sand 12 quarters away. In order to do that, you answer 5 questions. That's it, 5 questions. And I can tell you, if you can do those 2 things first, I'd be surprised. And you can message me after this, message Michael after this and go, yeah, that didn't work. The 3 hag is as human as it gets. The biggest thing is, as human beings, we don't want to say where we want to be 3 years from now. Why? Because we might be wrong.
What are some, you said there's 5 questions to ask to get clear on that 3 hag. Can you give us a few of those questions of what are they?
I'll give you all of them. The first question is, what year does your 3rd year, fiscal year end? December 31st, 2024? Maybe that's it. Canadian companies, could be another time. Second question, what do you want? What do you want your top line, your gross revenue to be that year, ending December 31st, 2024? How much cash do you want in the bank? Got it out, write it down. That's scary for people. Okay, next question is, how many of what do you need to sell in order to make that top line and put the cash in the bank? How many of what? What thing, right? How many contracts, how many hours, whatever it is, engagements. The next question is, if you're going to achieve that, those things and those dollars, the third question is, like you wrote down a big, hairy, audacious goal, your 10 to 30 year statement, you're going to write down a 3 hag statement, what you're going to be. If you deliver on that, what will you be? What will be your 3-year highly achievable goal? As a company, describe it. Got it out. It's the best thing ever. It feels so good to do this. And so once you do that, the next question is, what are the top 3 to 5 capabilities you need to have in place in your company in order to achieve that? Some might be already in place, some we might have to put in place. Okay, you got 12 quarters, 3 years to do it. Okay, you write those down. The last question is, if you do all of that, what will you be known for? When we say your company's name in the marketplace, people will have a space in their brain to say, in Paradata's world, we did all that. And we wanted people to think, you say the word, my first company's name, Paradata. And we wanted them to think and know that we make payments easy. We wanted them to think, oh yeah, Paradata, yeah, they make payments easy. Simple. And we wrote our 3 hag down and drove to it. And every year you re-up your 3 hag. So I always say happy new 3 hag year, because we always get a new one, right? It's always 2 years away.
Once you've answered those 5 questions, how much of that are you then backing out and kind of breaking down into annual, into quarterly? Like, what are the next steps that people would need to be thinking about?
Like I always say, do B hag, do 3 hag. Good. Sleep on it. I realize sleep's so important for this. It's strategic work. It's big thinking work. The next day or the next meeting, but have a sleep at some point, 1 or 2 or 3. The next day, then you're going to take your annual and you're going to do gross rev. You're probably going to do a bit more in between, cash in the bank, forecast cash first, really important. Widgets. What are the things that we need to sell in this year? Let's call it 2022. What are the top priorities we have to deliver? That's number 1. Company priorities. Number 1, who owns it? Specific, measurable, timely, all that good stuff. 1, 2, 3. Okay, great. Everyone agrees. We see the alignment to the 3 hag. And then we're in Q1 2022. We're going to say, what's your gross revenue for this quarter? Break it down by month. Actually break it down over 13 weeks. Cash. What are the things you need to deliver? 13-week sprint lanes, we call them. And then what are your top priorities? Company priorities first, and then somebody owns them. And we break them down over 13 weeks. The biggest thing is to get momentum with a system like this. You've got to get good at execution, clarity of execution, and people know what they need to do in order to create we're doing it. We're putting the numbers up. We're winning.
Where do you see most people make mistakes with this? So let's say somebody has a plan and they've come with whatever system or approach works for them. But in your experience, where do most people make mistakes when it comes to developing and even more importantly, kind of like following a system, whatever system that is?
The number 1 mistake that we see, and we did it too, and I'll tell you how we overcame it because it will help everyone else too, is creating the daily habit, looking at the plan and doing it with your team and everybody, like no different than when you're playing on the field and someone's got the ball and they missed the ball and you're like, hey, I can help you. right? And then you go get the ball and everyone's staying focused on the team score and the goal, but you're looking at it every day. And we know that, habits are created, behavioral habits are created, behavioral accountability is created. You're not born with it, you create it. So when you're with a team, you have to create it. And that's how we overcame that, because we can all get together, whether a 1-person team, 2-person team, 10-person team, we can all get together and go, hey, Shannon, we answered all those questions. We got it. We get to the end of the quarter and we're like, yeah, we didn't do it, because we never looked at the plan again. We put it on the shelf. So in order to create the habits, we did a couple of things. The first thing is from Rockefeller Habits back in the day, book Vern Harnish wrote, but we met him even before that. And he shared with us the one habit, that connect meeting every day. The whole organization connects. And the only focus is on the plan. And not only the execution plan, but we just mapped out QHAG, what we call a quarterly plan, a 1HAG, our annual, a 3HAG, and a BHAG. They have to stay aligned. So we're looking at it every day. It's a 15-minute meeting. It's a standing agenda. It saved me when I talked about earlier, when I was working hard, not smart. I'm working like 90, 100-hour weeks. That one meeting with a plan like we just described, the very first time, within the very first 30 days of doing that with my team, saved me 40 hours a week. So a 100-hour week, if you're feeling that right now, just think about taking 40 hours out.
Why is that? Is that because people are not necessarily clear on what to focus on? So they end up doing a lot of busy work, but not necessarily the essential work?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is focus. It keeps your focus every day. That's why I say if you're one person, have a huddle with your dog, your cat, yourself, your screen, whatever. Look at it every day. Create a habit to log in every day. And then the other piece of it is just that communication with your team. Like when you're on the soccer field, so easy to communicate to the goalie. You just yell. You yell to the striker, whatever it is. Great, got it. In business, especially in our virtual world, it's pretty hard to yell across the office because there's no one there with you at home anymore, right? So this ensures you connect. And we did this well before a pandemic or anything like that. But it just, we're a global company. So I couldn't yell across the office to my head of business development who was in Europe. I couldn't. We had to make a point of getting together. And how fast we solved problems, it's all the stucks and the questions and things that were going red. Like as if we were playing every day together, we actually just could solve them quickly together. And if we couldn't solve them in that meeting, we'd make a meeting for later in the day for us all to get together to brainstorm. It sounds crazy. And most people, I will not work with any client if they don't huddle every day, because it's a secret to success. We're there to evolve behavior, right? And disciplines. This is a discipline that you got to take to a fanatical level, is look at your plan every day. And when you plan a field, you have 90 minutes or whatever for a soccer game, you have 4 quarters for a basketball game, football game. That's all the time you have. You got to stay focused.
This is all really great information. And I want to switch our focus for a moment to your timeline, kind of back to the chapters of your business and your life. So you talked about, you had your education, multiple different degrees, you built and sold 2 different companies. And then if we kind of fast forward to more recent time, you developed the metronomics and the whole metronome kind of united playbook and frameworks and systems. When you decided to go back out and essentially start marketing and getting back into business, how did you get your first few clients? How did you take this body of knowledge and expertise that you had developed in the system, this framework, and start to actually have people get excited about it to the point where they wanted to hire you to help them?
Interestingly enough, so 2011 takes us to where we sold the business. I had 2 more years of a contract, and then I retired, right? And then I got a phone call. Even before I retired, I got this phone call and said, hey, Shannon, it was a colleague I knew out of Vancouver, British Columbia. I said, hey, I just watched you build and sell 2 companies while I'm here slogging along with my first one with not exciting results like you got. And I need to find a way. I said, oh yeah, that's nice. Like, why are you calling me? And he goes, well, you must have a system. And if you had asked me back then, I would never talk about it like this. It's been 10 years of undoing it and working us back in so that we can explain it and turn it. But I was like, oh, a system. Yeah, I guess you can say we have a system. And I'd say, yeah. I go, why? He goes, I was just wondering if you might want to coach the system. And I was like, oh, I'm not sure about that. Like I was so like on my own journey. And I was like, what does a coach mean to you? What kind of coach? Because there's so many coaches, consultants, everything. I said, describe what you're looking for. He goes, I'm looking for someone to coach me and my team. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. Because we morphed from that. I had a CEO coach for me. And then I grew my CEO coaches, because I had many different ones, into CEO plus leadership team coaches. So I said, that's sort of interesting. I said, but I don't know if the system will work for you. I said, I was involved in every one of the going into every company. Like, I don't know. I just don't know if it'll work. And they're like, well, we're willing. Are you willing? And I was like, okay, I'll try it. I mean, that's a weird thing because I didn't like go, oh, I think I'll be a coach. I got asked to be a coach, which I didn't even contemplate. I didn't have a card. I didn't have a website. Like I'm like the unexpected coach. So I was like, oh, okay. So I just did exactly, and everything in Metronomics is exactly what we did in our companies, except that I wasn't the CEO. So I had to like rethink things. I prepped for the meetings like I was CEO. This is what happens. And we know this for consultants out there, coaches out there, that if you do well with one company, they are going to tell people. Then you get other people calling you and so on. And so I might not be the greatest example because that is what happened. Someone goes, hey, I talked to, so-and-so, and they said, wow, like you're doing the system and would you coach us? I'm like, I don't know. I don't think so. But I did say yes to a handful and they got great success out of the system. I thought that's really interesting. I said, the one thing I would love that I didn't have when I was a CEO is just this platform, behavioral accountability platform that would be in the cloud. I grew up with software and whatnot, put stuff in the cloud. So I asked my actual now co-founding partner of Metronome Growth Systems, I say, he worked with me in all the other companies. I said, do you think you could just create this for my companies, this platform? Because we were using like back in the day, Word and Excel and all that stuff. It doesn't work that great, but it worked. And I said, just for my clients, because I tried a lot of other solutions out there. And he goes, yeah, I got time. I'll create that. And so we created the playing field, like for those clients. And meanwhile, as that's going on, I realized that if I really want to get, like the system's working, it's sort of exciting. I looked for this system. In 1998, I was like begging anybody for this system, someone to hand me this blueprint. So I was like, someone said, if you want to just give it away, why don't you just write it down? I go, I don't want to write that down. That's a lot of work writing a book. Like I don't take that lightly. The shortest thesis in the history of my university, right, is 30 pages. I don't want to write a book. Anyway, I got talked into writing a book. And the reason I wrote the book is because I didn't want anyone to be as desperate as I was to grow a company. That's why I do everything today. And so I wrote The Metronome Effect. Then you carry on and we have this platform. I have these 6 clients. That's it. People are reading the book. Well, I wrote a book so people don't call me. Well, that's just hilarious.
Would you say, Shannon, aside from just referrals and introductions by doing good work, obviously that contributed a lot to the growth of your current business. Aside from that, are the books the biggest or have the biggest impact on marketing lead generation? Or is there anything else that you've done over the last several years, and especially more recently, that you've found has a big impact?
Well, the interesting thing is book 2 came out again because I gave one piece of the system that I didn't write about in Metronome Effect to some coaches. Because now coaches were attracted because of the Metronome Effect. And they said, look, you keep talking about this thing called the 3 hack. All your clients have 3 hacks. Like, what is that? Can we use it too? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. I just gave it to a bunch of coaches that I knew and they used it and got the same exponential results that we got in my companies and that my clients were getting. So then, of course, they tell 2 friends and so on, being coaches. And then it gets launched at a big growth conference of our client up on stage talking about the 3 hack. And so I wrote it down. I was like, okay, well, I'll give that out too. That's like, sure, that's beautiful. Write that down as prescriptively as we wrote every other book. Write it down. Here you go. More coaches read it, which was not the intent. And then they came and they said, we want to be certified in it. And I was like, oh, really? Just read the book. You're good. Lots of coaches have had success. No, like, go ahead. Anyway, about 4 or 5 months went by. There's more coaches asking. So we said, okay, if our goal is to have no one as desperate as I was to grow a company as CEO and entrepreneur, if we actually teach the coaches how to do it, we're going to exponentially get to more people in a really great way. We're going to help the coaches. We're going to help the clients. This will be great. So we said it fits with our core purpose. Let's do it. So then we trained coaches. We currently have over 85 coaches worldwide who actually are certified in the 3HAG way, which is a piece and a big part of metronomics. And we in the metronome community, you can find a coach in most continents and countries around the world in many languages, which is like beyond my expectation. That's what has taken this off. It's been the coaches taking it out. I mean, for me as a coach, I still have 6 clients. One of those clients I've had for 10 years. Don't you want a client for 10 years, 9 years, 8 years? Like I very rarely take on a new client because once you start the system, and this is really important for anyone listening, the system feeds itself. And I say that in all due respect to other systems. Usually systems run out, right? They go 1, 2, 3 years. And I can remember my other coaching colleagues going, well, I keep my clients for 3 years. I'm like, really? Because I'm going on 6 and 7 and 8. Now I just rolled one into 10 years. One of my first clients since I started coaching. And someone goes, well, don't you run out of stuff? I said, no. I said, well, does an Olympic team, let's take hockey, ever go to the business Olympics or their Olympics without a coach? Why would they? Especially if they're winning. The coach doesn't get fired if they're winning. And so the system lays out the framework for all of us to plug and play many thought leaders. It's a regimen, many thought leaders, things into it for what the client needs.
And how do you structure your business? Because today you have your own clients, right? Small group. You have the software, you have the certification. What does your team look like in order to be able to operate and have 85 certified coaches, the software? What does that structure look like today?
So if I give you a view of the business, so I have clients that I coach directly. We have a software platform that all my clients are on. I won't coach anyone unless they use the platform. And I'll explain that in a moment. And we have hundreds of coaches on the platform, thousands of companies, thousands and tens of thousands of users around the world. And then we have the coaches themselves. There's that piece of the business where they come and learn and be a part of a community. So for me as a coach, I have a business that I coach my clients as I always have. They pay me a monthly fee of 10K or more. Most is much more than that these days, but that's what they're paying. And it's all in. There's no nickel and diming. You get me. You get my time. You get the cadence of meetings you require to win your business Olympics. The software is included. Everything's included. So that's an all in. You're buying my brain to work on your business, right? That's how I look at it. And only so much time to go over there. Then the software business is its own business. My co-founding partner, they drive that business. We have a full team. Our background is building platforms. So very natural state for us.
And how big is that team?
That team right now is about 9, 10 people. So that's a nice sized team. And that's support and dev and all the things that you can think of and training and everything. And then the coaching business, there's another 4 people over there to take care of the coaches. All of our businesses were always known for support, right? That 24/7, when you need it, support. You're not going to get some answering machine or a chat or whatever. You're going to get us and a human, and we're going to help you. So that's in the coaching world. We're going to train. We're going to learn from each other. There's community. Software world is no different. And then my clients, no different. Everything's built up on how we support those coaches and their clients.
Right. And how do you structure your day? Like walk me through, because obviously you have a lot going on and it's very clear that you still want to prioritize whether it's family time, on the slopes and mountain. What does your kind of typical day look like? And how do you make sure that you're focusing then on the right things, given that you have multiple different kind of businesses, even though they're connected, but you have to look at each of these. How do you kind of look at that? What does your typical day look like?
Perfect question, because I have been for over 20 years using a personal one-page plan. Personal one-page plan, 10 years, 3 years, 1 year, every 90 days. That's just for me, my family, get ourselves where we're going. Every year, I actually block out 2 years out of my time first. My family time, that's always blocked in.
And so is that like holidays, vacations? Kind of give me a sense of
Everything.
every weekend?
Yeah, everything. We're blocking out what we're doing. I might know exactly what we're doing, but it's blocked. Nobody's taking it in the business or anywhere else. Then, as you can imagine, in our business, we follow this regimen. That is like, I don't know any way else to operate, and my team doesn't either. So that's how we operate. And we actually followed a very tight schedule in all my businesses about what do we do on what days. In this particular business, we have what we call metronome meeting Mondays. And that day is for metronome, anything metronome. We have a cadence. It's all set out for years and it goes on forever, right? That Mondays are for a metronome. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, clients. And metronome Monday will include coaches as well. Friday is my time, right? Every week. And then we block as many weeks as we want to do what we need to. The big thing is that setting this up, and every time I had to say yes to something, I was like, okay, we're going to get this going. And then I'm going to work myself back out of that area of the business. And then we'll get that going and work myself. Because all I want to do is coach and teach and learn and be in the coaching community, this great community that we've built, and with my clients. It's just, we're so aligned from a core value perspective about wanting to help grow up leaders, really, and their companies and their lives.
I love that. There's so much in here. And before we wrap up, 2 questions. The second to last is just, if you think about the best book that you've read or listened to over the last 6 months, what stands out? What would you recommend? What do you really enjoy?
Wow, there's been so many, but I'm going to go to one that I really leveraged with my clients over the last 6 months. And it's actually, I think it's behind me. I got to make sure. Yeah. So it's Unlocking the Customer Value Chain, Thales Teixeira. I don't know. It's like just a fabulous book, because in order to leverage my first 2 businesses, it was about the customer value chain. It's always about the customer value chain. So for your clients and for consultants, right, coaches, we need to know this too. We need to understand this. And I always take everything, I apply it to my own business, and then I apply it to my clients' businesses. Super fun.
We'll have that linked up in the show notes. And then the final question, Shannon, but no less important, for those that want to learn more about you and your work and your books and all that good stuff, what's the one website they should go to?
Go to metronomeunited.com. Metronomeunited.com. Everything's there. And I just want to say, you've probably got the idea if you've been listening throughout this whole time, is that on our site, everything mentioned in the book, anything mentioned in any of the 3 books, there's full reader portals that you can log into that are there. They're free. We're not here to make money off this. We're here to help you grow your business. So please log in and check it out. Check the books out. And if you have questions, reach out. We'll be here.
Awesome. Good stuff. So we'll connect to that on the site. In the show notes there, just head over to consultingsuccess.com/podcast. And you'll find Shannon's podcast and this episode. So Shannon, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. It's so fun to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.